Hello everybody and welcome back to On Point HQ, and for this video something a bit different. No figures. This video will be about books. This was inspired from last night. I was taking part in the weekly paint and chat with Dom, Ken and Liam, and part of the what we were talking about was historical accuracy, and this led onto research, and Paul made a really good point that research is quite a really large part of the hobby in general. And when we discussed it, I made a couple of book recommendations, but this got me thinking. There's probably loads of books out there that I've never read that people could recommend. So I thought, right, this is an idea for a video. So what I'm going to be doing is 3 books that I would recommend anyone to read. For research purposes, just for a bit of expanding your knowledge as well. It's not going to be an in-depth, massive, thorough book review. It's going to last the next 3 hours. No, nothing like that. Just going to be a really quick, short, sharp. These are 3 books. These are what they're about, and this is why you should read them. So, without further ado, on to my first one. Now, my bad. I made a mistake in the chat last night. I actually called this "Letters from Stalingrad." Now, it's actually called "Voices from Stalingrad." Now, what I like about this book is that it's the personal testimonies of your rank and file soldier, both Russian and German, up to your commanders, your generals, but also the civilians that were trapped in Stalingrad at the time. And that's what makes it such an interesting read. It's not a tactical overview. It's not an all-encompassing, military history or doctrine of the fighting at Stalingrad. It's from the people that were there and the people that lived through it. Some of the letters of the testimonies are from people who died there as well. So it's quite a harrowing read. But I've read quite a few books about Stalingrad, but this is very, very near the top. It's just such a really good book, and it's letters, diary entries, testimonies after the war. Like I say, from soldiers and civilians alike. It paints, like I say, a pretty harrowing picture of what was a pretty awful battle. Let's be honest, it wasn't the nicest of places to have been during World War II. But this is just a brilliant collection of testimonies from civilians and soldiers alike. So I would certainly recommend this. Second one is this, Death Traps by Belton Cooper. I've lost count how many times I've read this book. It's just such a fantastic read. It's all about an American armoured division in World War II, specifically from the D-Day landings through Normandy and on into Germany. Now, Belton Cooper was he worked in engineering and maintenance, the maintenance side of the armoured division, was keeping the vehicles, keeping the tanks going, organising repairs, etc. But it's just such a fascinating read. If you're interested in D-Day onwards, so late war, which my favourite part, or my more preferred part of World War II, this should be an essential book in your collection. It's just such a great read, really in depth. Some great personal tales and anecdotes from Belton Cooper. Really went a long way into plugging gaps in my knowledge about this era. But I would certainly recommend this. I've lent this copy to several friends, and they've all said the same thing. Fantastic read, really good. And it's just one of those books you just want to keep reading and reading and reading. I'd never heard of it until someone recommended it. Now, I got this in about 2004 when I first got into Flames of War. Somebody recommended it on the Flames of War forum. I just went out and picked it up on, I think it was either eBay or Amazon. But yeah, just a great book. Certainly recommended. What is definitely one of my top 10 books about World War II. Absolutely fantastic read. And number 3, bit different. It's Homage to Catalonia by George Orwell. So it's all about the Spanish Civil War. I'll admit the Spanish Civil War is not a war or conflict that I know too much about. I know a couple of people from watching videos of use it as a platform for gaming, and they have several games with a Spanish Civil War sort of add-on content. But up until I read this, I didn't really know anything. Now, first of all, it's George Orwell. It's one of the greatest writers of all time, in my opinion. But this is it's a different slant compared to the other two books that I've recommended. This is from his own sort of his personal perspective of his time in Spain during the Civil War. It's an overview of the conflict, the reasons behind it, the various factions that were involved as well. But what strikes me about it is it is that personable side, that personal involvement. How it wasn't action, and there was weeks and months of inactivity, of just moving around. The conditions, the cold, the rain, and followed by very, very short bursts of activity, of combat. And it was, like I say, it's George Orwell. It's just written fantastically. And like I say, I've read this 5-6 times, and I learn something new every time I read it. For me, that's the essence of a good book. Is if I can keep reading it and I can keep learning from it. This is the epitome of that. Just a really, really interesting book, and it went a long way into increasing my knowledge of the Spanish Civil War, and the causes behind it, and the various factions that were taking part. So yeah, Homage to Catalonia by George Orwell is my third recommendation. So that's my 3 books. I could have probably said 33, never mind 3, but I'm pretty sure there are many out there that I've not heard of. So what books would you recommend? What 3 books of any period would you recommend that people pick up for expanding knowledge, for research, for helping in the hobby and the gaming perspective also? This video's gone a bit longer than I originally envisioned, but I hope you found it enjoyable and interesting. If you've got any comments, just leave them in the comments down below, and I'll certainly respond to all comments and questions. But as always, thanks for watching. Take care, may your dice roll well, and I'll catch you all in the next video. So bye bye for now.